Welcome everyone. Today we will discuss what would have happened if the Stresa Front survived. Now, as a bit of historical context, the Stresa Front was an alliance of the three European great powers, France, Britain, and Italy. This alliance came to be in the Italian town of Stresa, hence the name. The alliance's main aim was to enforce the Treaty of Versailles on Germany. Italy saw Germany as a threat to their security, as Germany claimed what they saw as their rightful territory. So this alliance was meant to stop German expansion. But due to misinformation and bad communication, Italy thought this means it would have free reign to do whatever it wanted in Ethiopia, and they proceeded to invade the country. Seeing this, both Britain and France kicked Italy out of the League of Nations. Afterwards, Britain signed the Anglo-German Naval Agreement with Germany and introduced appeasement. This was the final straw that effectively broke the Stresa Front. After this, Italy decided to ally with Germany and abandoned Austria. Later on, they signed the Pact of Steel and later the Tripartite Pact, effectively becoming the founders of the Axis. But what if this never happened? Today, we'll discuss that question. But before starting the scenario, I'd greatly appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel, as it would help me create more alternate history scenarios just like this. I have also created a schedule for my videos, so keep that in mind. But without any further ado, let's start the scenario. Here, we will have better communication between the Allies and Italy, due to which Italy doesn't invade Ethiopia, which resulted in their expulsion from the League of Nations. Italy, France, and Britain then worked together to stop further German expansion. In 1937, the Austrian Chancellor, who was a firm anti-Nazi, would get assassinated. This would soon cause a crisis in Austria. Mussolini, the British and French prime ministers, and the funny mustache man would meet in Milan to end the crisis. By the end, the Germans would agree to back down. Victory in this conference would further increase Mussolini's popularity and his credibility. Italy would manage to keep Austria as a buffer for the time being. Mussolini would realize that Hitler would try to invade in the future and would set up a wall of defenses in the Alps. In 1938, Germany would demand the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. To solve this crisis, the Munich Conference would be held, by the end of which it would be agreed that Germany gets the Sudetenland. After the conference, Germany invades Czechoslovakia and Mussolini moves troops to the Austrian border as a warning. Czech industry and gold would sustain the Reich for another year. In 1939, the Germans would demand Danzig from Poland. Italy, Britain, and France would warn Germany that this would mean war. The Germans would invade and partition Poland with the Soviets, while in the Spanish Civil War, the nationalists would still manage to win due to Italian aid, while Italy would continue to influence Albania, effectively turning it into an Italian puppet. As the Second World War starts, Germany would manage to blitz through France while also invading and annexing Austria. The Italian front would be painfully slow, and British troops would pour into the Italian lines to help them. In the Balkans, Yugoslavia would join the Axis and invade Istria, while after some convincing, Bulgaria agrees to join the Allies and invades Macedonia. Germany would pressure Romania and Hungary to join the Axis, and they would, and together they would overrun Bulgaria. Thinking that Yugoslavia would hold off Italy, the Germans would move most of their army east and would begin Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. As the invasion progresses and eventually gets stuck, the Allies would move troops into Albania and launch an invasion of Yugoslavia from there. The Italians would also try a counteroffensive and would manage to push the Yugoslavs out of Istria and start a campaign in Dalmatia, while the Soviets would manage to push the Germans out of their territory and even start a counteroffensive. By 1944, the British and Americans would start D-Day, and soon France, with Italian help, would get liberated, as the Allies would move into the German heartland. The Italians would manage to break the Yugoslavs, who would surrender, as the Allies also liberate Bulgaria. The Italians would start a counteroffensive into Austria, with Vienna being captured by 1944. The Italians would further advance into Czechia and would liberate Prague. Following this, they, alongside American and British troops, would push into Germany, and by 1945, they would take Berlin. The funny mustache man would shoot himself. and in propaganda posters, Mussolini would present himself as Augustus and the Germans as the Germanic barbarians, proclaiming this victory as avenging the loss at Teutoburg Forest the Romans suffered in 9 AD. Peace negotiations would soon take place, and Mussolini would sit alongside Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill to discuss the future of the world. Peace in the West would mostly be the same, but France would be allowed to annex the Saarland. In the Balkans, Bulgaria would gain parts of Dobruja from Romania, while Yugoslavia would be dismantled, with Bulgaria taking most of Macedonia. Albania would be allowed to annex Kosovo and some parts of Macedonia. Italy would annex Dalmatia while the rest of Yugoslavia is broken up into Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, and Slovenia. In the east, the peace would mostly be the same, although Poland wouldn't be allowed much expansion into Pomerania and Silesia. Germany would be carved up into 6 states. This would be done at the request of Franklin D. Roosevelt and Mussolini, who wouldn't want to see Germany threaten Europe ever again. These 6 states would be Prussia, Saxony, Bavaria, Hanover, the Rhenish Republic, and Baden-Württemberg. All of them would be monarchies except the Rhenish Republic, which would be a republic under French influence. The Second World War would end, and as the Cold War starts, the Eastern Bloc would be much smaller, only having Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, and the USSR. As the Cold War progresses, Italy would become a valued member of NATO, although Italy would still hold on to their colonies stubbornly, like the French, and they would refuse to decolonize. In the late 60s, after Mussolini's death, Italy, like Spain, would become a constitutional monarchy, but with some fascist elements here and there. Italy, by this time, would also decolonize and leave their colonies in Africa. As the Cold War ends, by the modern day, Italy would be a respected great power with a proud history. But this will end the scenario. If you liked it, please consider subscribing and leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I love reading them. Don't forget about the Halloween video, it will be interesting. But for now, goodbye and see you in the next one.